So today's one of those rare days I have an X-T4, an XH2, and an XH2s in the studio all at the same time. So for today's Fast Friday, let's compare high ISO. Well, hi everyone and welcome to Pal to Tech. With all the news lately about the X-T5, it's hard to believe that just a matter of months ago, we got not one, but two XH2 cameras. Now, before I go any further, I must say that the XH2, yeah, it's this one, the XH2s was loaned to me by Fujifilm themselves, so I have to return this on Monday, while the XH2 was loaned to me by B&H Photo. I do want to thank B&H Photo for loaning out this camera to my channel. It does make it possible for me to try out new gear, because after that XH5 announcement, I'm pretty much out of kidneys to sell at this point. So let's get into today's comparison. Now, there are times, and hopefully not that often, when you really need to crank up the ISO as high as possible. The higher the ISO, the more noise that will be amplified in your image. However, it's always better to have a noisy image than no image. Sometimes raising ISO to really high levels is the only exposure triangle choice that you have left. Remember that native ISO is the amplification of the signal before it arrives at the analog to digital converter. While the extended ISO, you know, those really high numbers, are the result of software generated amplification. That happens much like Lightroom and Photoshop, but it happens in the camera, and it happens right at this phase of the process, just before your camera saves out the image to the SD card. Now, I have entire videos on ISO, and I will link to some of them down below, and I strongly recommend that you go check them out if you are new to ISO and you want to understand more what it is and the fact that ISO has nothing to do with exposure. But today we are going to take a look at 3 different ISO settings compared with each of these 3 cameras. And this should be interesting because since they are software driven and they're dependent on the processor of the camera, is there much difference in how it's handled between the different camera models? Let's take a look. Okay, so for this test, I shot the same 3 photos with each of these cameras, the X-T4, the XH2, and the XH2s. I had the camera set to manual with the exact same settings for all 3 cameras, and I shot in both JPEG and RAW at the highest quality. Let's look at the lowest of the 3 now, 12,800, and we'll compare the X-T4 with the XH2s. Okay, zooming into 200% here. There's definitely some color differences between the two, but I don't want to get into that here. I am more concerned with how much noise is in each image. And frankly, it's really hard to tell. I would say these are absolutely identical. Let's check the X-T4 with the XH2. Now, the XH2 has a 40 megapixel sensor size, and therefore that's why the image is larger at 100 or 200% in Lightroom. And I would say maybe, and I mean maybe, and I am pixel peeping here at 200%, but maybe there is a smidgen, a smidgen more noise in the X-T4, but they're pretty much the same. Let's take a look now at ISO 25,600. Again, we'll compare the X-T4 with the XH2s. Looks pretty similar at 200%. Maybe a tiny bit more color noise in the X-T4. And I have to say, perhaps the XH2 is doing a tiny little bit better. You see right here versus right here. You see that? Or right here versus right here. I'm at 200% magnification here. Let's compare the XH2 with the XH2s. And no doubt about it, the XH2 is noisier than the XH2s. Look at that right here. You see the difference? Now let's check the biggest one of all, ISO 51,200. Let's start with the X-T4 and the XH2s. Here we are at 100%, and I can certainly see that there is some more noise in the X-T4. Have a look at this right here versus right here. Same thing right here versus right here. Now let's zoom into 200%. Have a look at this. X-T4, definitely more noise. If I had to convert this high ISO noise into audio, the XH2s would be more like boo, and the X-T4 is like boo. I mean, have a look at this. Noise-o-rama. Let's take a look at the XH2 versus the XH2s. Both have the same X-Trans processor 5. Here we are at 200%, no doubt about it. The XH2 is noisier than the XH2s. Okay, so what did we learn from this? The XH2s handles higher ISO in low light better. Same thing with the XT4 versus the XH2. The XH2 beats it out. But something to keep in mind, most of the higher noise that I noticed were in the real shadow areas. In the lighter parts of the image, you really can't tell the difference. Also, you really can't tell unless you zoom in to 200%, then it becomes blatantly obvious. So considering the price difference here with these cameras, the ISO noise, right, that you get on really high ISO for the XT4 is a pretty good bargain. It's not that much worse than what you get with the XH2s and XH2 cameras. But with really high ISO, and I mean above 25,000, the XH2s is the winner here. Anyhow, I thought that was kind of interesting to point out. I know it's not a huge common shooting situation, but it's interesting nevertheless because of the processor differences between the XH2 and the XT4. No doubt about it, the XH2 is an improvement in that regard with high ISO and low noise. By the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but I've got an email notification newsletter that goes out every time I publish a video. It has a photo of the video with the title and like a little, click here, and that's it. It only goes out when I publish a video, and it's a little kind of a notification system. If that's something you'd like to get, I will leave a link in the description down below. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you found the video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I will be signing off now, but have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in a new video next week. Take care.